"Delia, will you please let this girl have your house? I plan to make the rent on time. As a sisterly discount, how about $50 each month? This is too large a home for 2 people. Giving the house to your sister, who intends to have many children, would be best for it. I'm Delia, and I'm 35. My daughter is 3 years old. My kid is the only member of my family. I do not, however, regret it today. In fact, I believe it was a good thing. After high school, I started working as a caregiver. I was genuinely in love with my hubby. I met Hank 3 years ago at a high school reunion, and we were married around a year later. I had feelings for Hank in secret while I was in high school. When this was discovered at the reunion, I wanted to crawl into a hole because I was so humiliated. But Hank called me when I got home. He questioned, "Did you really like me?" Instinctively, I said, "Yes." "What about now?" he inquired once again. I said, "I still do, and that's how our relationship began. We were married after a year or so, and the next year we had a beautiful daughter called Nora. Nora is quite cute and shares her father's appearance, her figure gently dozing like an angel. In addition to my career, my spouse and I worked together to raise our child while juggling work and daycare. Our kid was set to turn 1 when my husband vanished out of nowhere. That day, when I got home, my kid was wailing in the rear, and the room was completely black. A lawyer's business card and a divorce document signed by my spouse were on the table in the living room. My spouse had shown no indications whatsoever that he was considering leaving. I could have understood if he had lost interest in me, but I could never imagine leaving our kid home alone. He ought to have left her with someone, or at the very least brought her to his parents' house. Her voice was shaking, and she continued to cry. She must have been quite hungry because she gulped the milk I hastily produced and gave her with unexpected fury. I changed her diaper right away because it was in a horrible state. How long had she been left alone, I wonder? After that, my spouse didn't get in touch. The legal process proceeded through the lawyer whose business card he had left, and our divorce was finalized. This little house I had purchased before to our marriage, my cherished daughter, and a little sum of child support left by my former spouse were all that remained to me. His abrupt disappearance had infuriated his parents. "I'm truly sorry to leave Delia and Nora like that," they stated. "He never got in touch with us. I'm not sure what he was considering. I'm never going to forgive him." Then they told me, "You're divorced and may not want to work with us anymore, but please don't hesitate to get in touch with us if you need someone to take care of Nora in the future. You must be working really hard at this. Working alone must be difficult. As long as it doesn't upset you, Delia, we're here if you need us." Though actually it was a very beneficial offer, I hesitated at first. I chose to accept my in-laws' offer since I was unable to depend on my own parents for a number of reasons. I later discovered that my ex-husband had been having an affair after coming across what I think to be his social media account. Even after he married me, the other lady had persistently pursued him, and it appeared that she had finally been successful in removing him from my life. My ex-husband frequently bemoaned on social media, saying things like, "Raising kids is difficult. I feel ancient taking care of a baby. I don't develop an attachment with my daughter. I wish to leave this existence behind. I am at my breaking point." It appears that the lady he had an affair with is employed by the corporation and has a degree. On social media, my ex-husband highlighted this point by claiming that she was not like his high school graduate, caretaker wife. When I saw it, I became enraged. I did some research to see whether I could legally get alimony, but it seemed hard to get more when I had already gotten a little portion of property divide from the abrupt divorce and child support. I made the decision to stop worrying about money. All I had to do now was concentrate on parenting my daughter. There was no space in my mind for my former spouse. I swallowed my pride, sent my kid off with my in-laws for the day, and gave my all to child care when I got back from work. Thankfully, my daughter has grown up healthy and free of any diseases or injuries. That brought me the most joy. At work, they considered my situation, and even in the midst of a severe staff shortage, they flexibly adjusted the shifts when my daughter was ill. Additionally, I received a lot of advice and help from colleagues who had experience with child care. I am truly grateful for all the support I continue to receive in various ways. My daughter loved her grandparents very much, and sometimes she would turn away pouting when I came to pick her up. On the other hand, when I tried to go to work in the morning, she would resist being held by her grandmother and cry for me, which was confusing but also pleased me. Now that my daughter has turned 2 and started attending nursery school, we rely less on my in-laws. It's a bit sad that she's going to nursery school now, said my mother-in-law. Although my mother-in-law felt lonely not seeing her as often, I think it's not good to rely on my in-laws forever. At the nursery, there were surprisingly many single mothers like me raising children. Having similar circumstances made conversations lively, and talking with each other often refreshed our moods. As we continued these daily routines, my daughter's 3rd birthday arrived. I gave her her beloved chocolate cake and the makeup set she had been looking forward to, and we spent her birthday together. I think it was about 3 days later. Exhausted from a night shift, I had dropped my daughter off at nursery and was soundly asleep on the sofa when suddenly the doorbell rang. I usually ignored the doorbell unless I was expecting a delivery or had prior notice, as dealing with unexpected matters had become increasingly troublesome. However, that day the ringing persisted, prompting me to get up and check the monitor. There, I saw my parents and sister, whom I hadn't been in contact with for a long time, pressing the button. In surprise, my mother immediately began to speak. "Delia, it's Mom. Are you doing well? We've come because there's something we need to talk about. Your sister is getting married." My mother spoke with a joyful expression, then urged my sister to speak. My sister, who was neatly dressed, said, "Hey sis, it's been a while. We came to see your house today. What's the rush? It's hot outside. Can we come in? I also want to give you the wedding invitation." Reluctantly, I opened the door. Immediately, my parents brushed past me, commenting, "It's quite spacious, isn't it?" As they made themselves at home inside. I couldn't grasp what was happening and tried desperately to stop them, but they paid no heed to my protests. There are 2 bedrooms, so it seems we could even fit a large bed. There's even a storage room. The kitchen pantry is included, and it looks like there's enough storage, they said, continuing to inspect each room. I became more agitated. "But weren't you supposed to just deliver an invitation? What are you doing looking around the house as you please?" I asked. "We're family. What's there to be troubled about?" The ease with which they mentioned family left me momentarily speechless. There was no bond that could truly be called family between me and those 3. "Now that we've seen inside, what do you think?" my mother asked. "Yeah, it was your house, Delia, but I think it passes muster. He'll surely agree if it's this house. Just make sure to clean every nook and cranny before moving in, then it's settled." Seeing me stunned, my mother turned back and said, "Delia, could you possibly hand over your house to your sister?" "What?" "I intend to pay the rent properly. How about $50 a month as a sisterly discount?" Here's what my mother was thinking. My sister wanted to start a new life in her own home with the person she loved as they got married. However, she had no savings and couldn't afford to build a new home. That's why they came to me. It seems my parents had secretly investigated and knew that I had just bought the house and was divorced, raising my daughter alone. "This house is too big for just 2 people. It would be better for the house if you gave it to a sister who is planning to have many children." "It's not about that. Isn't it hard for you too, living in this house full of memories with your ex-husband? I'll take over and live here instead for your sake. I'll pay rent, so it's good, right?" She said this so nonchalantly. I distanced myself from my family after I left home, graduating high school and getting a job. All 3 of them never thought of me as family. From my childhood through my student years, I was treated as if I were invisible. The reason was clear. My mother remarried, and my current father was my stepfather. There was a 7-year age gap between my sister and me, and we had different fathers. When I was little, my father and mother were always arguing fiercely. I wanted them to get along, and I tried to mediate their fights. One night, in a rage, my father threw my mother and me out of the house. My mother took me to her parents' house, and we lived there for about 2 to 3 years. As soon as the divorce was finalized, my mother said, "I want to introduce you to David, a man who has been helpful to me at work. That man is now my father." Their wedding ceremony was small, just the two of them. No relatives were invited, and I didn't even attend. On that day, I was studying at home when my mother registered the marriage. She was already pregnant, and soon after my sister was born. However, even before my sister's birth, I was treated as if I didn't exist in the house. Initially, my stepfather made an effort to engage in conversation, but gradually he lost interest in me. Even when I spoke to him, his responses were cold, and he wouldn't even look at my face. My mother's behavior was terrible, too. After she started living with my stepfather, she never met my eyes. Even when I was in the living room, they acted as if I wasn't there, talking only to each other. They would take baths together and close the hot water, even though I hadn't bathed yet. At first, I thought they just wanted to enjoy their newlywed life, but that wasn't the case. Once my sister was born, both my father and mother prioritized her above everything else. I thought it was inevitable while my sister was a baby, but the situation remained the same as she grew up. One day, looking in the mirror, I realized something. My face closely resembled my biological father's. The resemblance had probably been strong since I was young. I think my mother felt annoyed by me after remarrying as I reminded her of her ex-husband. That was the moment I realized why I was treated as non-existent in our home. My sister seemed to have a faint awareness of our situation. When we were young, she used to share the snacks she received with me, giving me half. From the brand new set of pencils given only to my sister, she gave me one. She often expressed sympathy for me, saying, "I feel sorry for you, sister," and took care of me in various ways. I was comforted by her kindness and resolved to always cherish her. However, as she entered middle school, our relationship began to change. Whenever our parents bought her something new, she would immediately boast to me, saying, "I got this. They only buy stuff for me, not for you, huh? Do you want this? I already got one before, so I can give it to you." The way she looked down on me, as if a wealthy person pitying a poor one, was evident in her expressions and words. At first, I thought it was my own jealousy shaping her words, but as it happened repeatedly, I realized that wasn't the case. She was mocking me, feeling superior. The moment I realized that, I knew the only support I had in my family was gone. No matter how much I wanted to avoid her, she would come to my room, using our parents' love as a shield to brag. My parents continued to ignore me. When we had school club activities, I was often left without a meal, or the food just sat cold on the table. Sometimes it wasn't even in the fridge. Enduring such situations every day nearly broke my spirit. Feeling that I couldn't go on like this, I firmly decided, I'll leave this house once I graduate from high school, and that determination helped me get through my student life. In today's world, even a high school graduate can make it. I didn't initially choose caregiving as a job I particularly wanted, but as I worked, I began to find fulfillment in it. Being less fortunate with family, the job was challenging, but became a source of emotional support. My colleagues, both seniors and juniors, were all kind and dependable. Due to these circumstances, I had kept my distance from my family for a long time. Yet suddenly they looked me up, came to my house without permission, rummaged through it, and made unreasonable demands, like asking me to hand over the house for $50 rent, which made me question their common sense. I couldn't stand my sister's irrational attitude, thinking my belongings were hers. It's a house full of memories with my ex-husband, but it's a precious home I worked hard to buy with the money I saved. It might be too big for two, but we like it here, so I have no intention of giving it to my sister. She should build her own house with her own money. Are you struggling that much financially? I asked her. Just because you only graduated high school, you act all high and mighty. I'm a public servant, so I have more money than you, she replied. She continued, I'm just saying this house is too good for you, so you should leave. Isn't it said that caregivers don't earn much, considering the work they do? Wouldn't you appreciate the rental income? Being a single parent, you must need the money, right? Don't talk to me about rental income of $50 a month, I snapped. That's nowhere near enough to cover the mortgage repayments. Hey, you still have a mortgage. You should be the one to pay it off to the end, she said. That's right, I bought it, so I should take responsibility until the end. Enough, I'm not giving this house to anyone, so leave, I retorted. I don't even plan to attend the wedding. You've always been an unattractive child, my mother interjected. Don't take it out on me just because I look so much like Dad. I don't even think of you as my mother, I shouted in frustration. My mother, furious, yelled back with 3 times the intensity. I managed to drive my mother out of the house, and my father and sister hurriedly followed her out. I watched them leave and slammed the door shut. Don't come here anymore. Leave me alone. I couldn't leave the spot until I saw them disappear. The harsh words showered on me by my family, whom I had not seen in a long time, brought back painful memories I had almost forgotten, stirring turmoil in my chest and making me feel nauseous. However, I couldn't afford to take time off work, so I went to my job despite being sleep-deprived. Finally, when my day off arrived, the turmoil in my heart had not subsided. I left my daughter with my in-laws and hopped on a train alone to a certain destination. I went to a church famous for warding off evil. It was a church renowned nationwide. Though a bit far from home, I went there, desperately seeking a blessing to ward off evil, and I received a prayer for protection at the church. Although my daughter was grumpy about being taken to her grandparents' house on her day off, when I explained that I went to ask God to prevent any misfortune from befalling our home, her expression became intrigued. What misfortune? She asked. It means unexpected bad events. I asked for protection to keep our home safe from such things, I explained. I want to pray to God too, she said, sitting on the sofa and beginning to pray softly. The following week, as usual, I picked up my daughter from nursery and did some shopping on our way home. The moment I opened the front door of our house, I felt the presence of someone inside. I quickly moved my daughter away from the house, telling her, "Wait here." Then I went back inside alone, grabbing an umbrella from the entrance. I heard some noises coming from the living room. Thinking it must be a burglar, I steeled myself, opened the living room door and screamed. Aha! I didn't even know what I was yelling, but I frantically swung the umbrella around, raising my voice. Yeah. Startled by my charging in with the umbrella, the person who fell backward was not a burglar, but my sister. Why are you here? That's my line. You scared me. I'm the one who's shocked. What are you doing here? Upon closer inspection, I noticed the living room window was broken. My sister had entered the house through that window. Moreover, she was rummaging through the cupboard. I frantically grabbed my smartphone. Wait, who are you calling? The police. There's a burglar in the house. I'm not a burglar. If you're not a burglar, then what do you call breaking into a house through a window? As if saying she wouldn't let that happen, my sister charged at me, trying to snatch away my smartphone. Stay away. Give me the phone. Stop it, you thief. I told you I'm not a thief. You are definitely a burglar. My sister and I were shouting nonsensical things at each other as we grappled. That's when it happened. There's a thief. A thief. There's a bad person here. My daughter's voice could be heard from outside. Worried, she had come home and quietly opened the front door, probably hearing the word thief. Thief, thief, thief. Somebody help. My daughter was running around the neighborhood screaming loudly. That sneaky little. When my sister tried to head outside toward my daughter, I grabbed her and desperately tried to prevent her from going outside. At that moment, our neighbor, Mr. Watson, and Mr. Allen from across the street came rushing into the house, wielding a baseball bat and a golf club, shouting loudly. Old Mr. Carter, who lives nearby and whose hobby is gardening, also entered through the living room window, holding large shovels in both hands. While I was tending to the garden flowers, I was truly grateful that I had greeted him before. I felt proud of myself for having established a conversational relationship with Mr. Watson and Mr. Allen. Building relationships with neighbors really is beneficial in such a situation. I was slightly moved and almost teared up. Perhaps realizing that her situation was hopeless, my sister stopped resisting and collapsed on the spot. Seeing this, the neighbors firmly restrained her. Worried about my daughter, I hurried outside, and Mrs. Watson was there embracing her. The moment I saw my daughter's face and felt relieved, I heard the sound of a police siren. My sister was handed over to the police by the neighbors and was being questioned in the police car. I repeatedly expressed my gratitude to the neighbors and hugged my daughter tightly. "So it's all thanks to you, Nora." When someone said that, Nora shouted, "Be gone, evil spirit." I wondered where she had learned such a phrase. Nora then began mimicking a pastor's gestures. This caused all the neighbors to start laughing, and the tumultuous atmosphere calmed down a bit. Shortly after my pale-faced parents arrived, they must have been contacted by the police. Tears streaming down her face, my mother apologized and said, "Delia, just listen. Please help her pay off her debts." "Hey, what debts?" "She messed up with stocks." At that moment, everything that had happened clicked in my mind, including what I found out later. It appears that my sister got involved in stocks because her income was insufficient. The reason was her boyfriend. She wanted to impress him with gifts and meals, but her salary made that difficult. At that time, my sister saw a dubious advertisement claiming easy money could be made from stocks. She bought the product and began trading with enthusiasm, but the result was a loss. Nevertheless, she had previously bragged to her partner about how she would construct a new home for them when they got married, and she came to me pleading for my house when she got desperate. She kept trading stocks after I turned her away, telling herself that, next time, it'll be fine, and she finally racked up a sizable debt that our parents eventually learned about. In the end, that made her attempt to pilfer money from my home. My sister may have grown extremely obstinate since, ever since we were small, I was always an easy target for dominance. "You're not interested in me. Please just hand me the cash without a word. I have bills to pay off," she cried. "It is still illegal to break into a home and steal money just because you are related to me. I don't have any money to give you, no matter what." "You're really rude to say that. Someone whose spouse left her is not the person I want to hear it from. My spouse will adore me, and I will have a contented family full of kids. You break the law, and yet you say things like this?" "What? Stop it right now, you two." "Delia, please be kinder. I mean, she's your sister. Offer her some assistance. This individual is not my sibling. If you wish to assist her, Mom and Dad, I'll allow you. She is nothing to me. She is not related. You thief, stay away from me. Go, evil spirit." Behind me, my daughter began acting out an exorcism once more. Red-faced, my parents went to talk to my daughter, but the police stopped them and took the three of them to the police station. After that, I wasn't worried about what would happen to my sister, but later on, my mother called to my house and asked for assistance for Delia. "I'm sorry for everything," I said as I made a money request. "I am unable to forgive you, even if you apologize. Don't ask for aid from me because we are no longer friends. I'll make another police call if you don't leave." I turned my mother away after that. My mother claims that after learning about the break-in and her obligations relating to stocks, my sister's boyfriend fled. She was compelled to resign after the rumors even reached her place of employment. The three of them have vanished since then. I saw my parents' house was for sale when I drove by out of curiosity and a desire to stay hidden. The rumors going around the neighborhood say they could have left during the night. I wonder if my daughter's exorcism had any bearing on it, or if it was the church's blessing, which is supposed to fend against evil. It felt a little strange that the three of them vanished so quickly, but considering our family's already tenuous bonds, maybe it was fate. After that, even at preschool, my daughter would pretend to be a preacher and would frequently act out exorcisms. I'd want to take a picture of that the next time I get the chance.